get these up here. What was the question, Mr. Christy?
Lucid, the world.
Yes.
Tell us.
Well, originally I got this idea. I'd been reading this book called Supernatural by Graham Hancock. I don't know if anybody knows who this guy is. I'm kind of nerd about the occult and magic and stuff, just from sort of a historic point of view. I find it really interesting, on top of being a big comic book fan. So when Zach and Before the Door had come to me about pitching them ideas about writing a comic, I thought it would be kind of cool to create a character who had access. Originally, this is sort of the kernel of the idea, had access to higher levels of consciousness and other dimensions. And when I first thought about it, it was sort of this much darker, sort of drearier government experiment book about this character who had this supernatural ability to enter these different worlds. But then that grew, basically, because I don't know, that wasn't as good of an idea as what the comic became. And it eventually evolved into what I think is a much broader, much more fun, sweeping sort of action-adventure narrative. So it takes place in a world where, an alternate universe where major world...
In a world. Where magic is real.
It takes place in a parallel universe where major world powers have secret agents working for them, sort of behind the scenes and taking care of supernatural terrorist threats, basically. Yeah, I mean, that sort of sums it up in a general sense, but we can talk.
Or as the high concept pitch, we like to say, it's what if Harry Potter grew up and joined the CIA?
Yeah, it's got a lot of elements of James Bond, a bit of Harry Potter, things that I loved growing up, Indiana Jones, and you know, a little bit of Jules Verne, a little bit of H.G. Wells, and again, this sort of fascination with the occult and history. And for those of you, you know, who may know this, I've talked about it a little bit. Did you just burp during that? Are you burping over there? No, that was kind of...
Cake fight.
Anyway, getting back on track, Camino Lucid the First had a court magician named John Dee. And our character, Matthew D., who's the hero of Lucid, is a descendant of John Dee. I wanted to sort of take this idea of heads of states and presidents and kings and queens using people who had access to magic for them. And so this, you know, I sort of thought Lucid could be the story of what if Barack Obama had an ass-kicking combat mage working for him. And that would be Matthew D.
Zach, where did you guys discover Michael?
We found him lurking in the hallways of Carnegie Mellon, apparently homeless and in need of acting training. We absorbed him into our fold. No, I mean, you know, we went to college together, and that's part of what has been really cool for me about the company and all of the projects that we're working on, for the most part at this point, have something to do with people that we've known for a long time or have a history with, and Michael's certainly one of them.
That's actually a great segue. Can you talk a little bit about Before the Door, since Lucid is the first comic you guys are doing, but not the last? And
no, it's not the last. We started the company 2 years ago in July, and we just finished our first feature film, which is really exciting. We shot that in New York. It's called Margin Call. Which is not what that says on the t-shirt at all. So don't be
you're trying to flash.
And comic-wise, yes, Lucid is our first book, and then we have another book down the pipeline with Archaia as well. That is written by another one of our fellow Carnegie Mellon alumni.
Who knew the private school with the oldest BFA program in the world would turn out so many comic creators?
Yeah, two from the same class, in fact. So that's exciting, and we're working on a bunch of different stuff and really trying to find new ways to tell stories and new stories to tell. And we're really grateful to you, Stephen, and Archaia for giving us an opportunity to do that. That was one of the main reasons why I started the company in the first place, to be able to do that for other people. So it's sort of all as a chain, and I think ultimately are serving something bigger, which is the idea of storytelling, and that's larger than all these individual parts. But thanks.
One of the things that I love about working with you guys that's so interesting from other companies is that there's a lot of Hollywood companies out there that, you know, because of the success of Comic-Con and because of the rise of geek culture in the last few years, have come down here to start doing comic books, you know, to promote essentially what our movie pitch is, basically, in comic book format. And the great thing about, you know, developing this project with all of you is that it's always been a comic book first and foremost. It's always been, how can we make the coolest comic book possible? How can we deliver this idea in the best way and make this kind of entrance of the Before the Door and Archaia partnership into the scene as successful as possible? So,
coming to theaters in 2000.
That was one of the main reasons why, you know, yeah, it's very true. It was really important for me to not necessarily be serving some larger purpose for myself as an actor with everything that I do with my company, and I'm really lucky that Corey Moosa here is a lifelong comic book fan. Michael obviously brings with him a long history. I've made no bones about the fact that I don't come from a comic book background, but then found myself in this world based on my relationship to heroes and ultimately Star Trek, so for me, it was an opportunity to explore a new format that I wasn't really familiar with, but I was smart enough to recognize that I was surrounded by people who are, and that they could really guide that aspect of the company and take us in new directions. This guy's on the phone, I think it's cool. Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to?
I'm sorry.
Just hang up with them? Get them in here. Where's that person? Bring them back. We want them to come and get the comic book. I wasn't calling you out. I want to help you. There's a seat crisis. We need to get it solved. We need as many people in here. Really, Friday. Anybody that wants to come in.
It's like,
Yeah. Don't be sorry.
I feel like we need entrance music.
I like to.
Thanks.
All right, you good?
Thanks for coming.
Welcome.
Now, don't call him. You're sitting next to him. So no more phone calls. You're in.
Don't be sorry. We're just seriously having a good time. It's all good. Okay, sorry, Stephen. No, interrupted my shenanigans.
It's quite all right. It's quite all right. Michael, you probably are one of the geekiest people I've ever met.
Thanks.
And I mean that with love. You read more comics than I do, almost. What are some of the comics that influenced the storytelling?
Oddly enough, I mean, I think one of the I'm not a geek. Well, I started reading comics when I'm gonna mispronounce his name because I was in the 3rd grade when I started reading it. But David McMillian was writing Amazing Spider-Man. McMillian, right? And Todd McFarlane was drawing it, and you know, I just remember going to the grocery store. It was like before I discovered comic shops, and just like going to get each issue, and that comic was so much fun, you know. So when I sat down to write Lucid, I was like, I want to create something that will be hopefully as fun for the reader as my favorite comics were for me. So that's something that is a primary influence. But you know, I love, you know, I read everything by Brian Michael Bendis. I love Warren Ellis. I think I reread Planetary while working on this just because structurally there was something that I love so much about that book, where each issue is sort of a separate mission, and the pace is fantastic in that, and but linked together, they tell an overall story.